Hello everybody, this is Alan Wall's Photography. Welcome to episode 1 of the Circle of Confusion, Bathing with Bees and Bad Bellows Behavior. Yes, I did come up with that name myself. I was quite proud of it. This is a new series of videos that I intend to go for as long as I can keep it up, where I'm going to answer your questions. These are going to be short videos. I'm going to pick one or two of the more interesting questions from the last week, and I'm going to share my answers to those questions with you. But first, I have an announcement that I want to make. For those of you who are not aware of it, we have a very interesting, very active Discord community, and I would like you to join. It's great fun. We have all kinds of different rooms or channels or whatever you call them over there. You can go over there, talk about gear, show off your pictures, get critiques, tell lies, just do really whatever you want to do within reason and the law. I will put an invitation that will be valid for ever in the show notes. Just go there and click on the link and you will become a member of our Discord group. Look forward to seeing you over there. First up today, behaving badly with bellows. This concerns my recent video on bellows. It was called Bellows Basics. In this video, I was wrong about something. I said categorically that when you're using the bellows in macro photography, you leave the distance between the camera and the lens fixed. You move the camera, the bellows, and the lens as a unit towards and away from your subject to focus. And while that is absolutely true for most of the bellows work that I do, it is not true in all cases. And this was pointed out to me by Mr. Spence Barton, who's a really bright guy. There are circumstances when you can move the camera closer to the lens to focus. Where this becomes helpful is when your subject's a little bit larger, and when you move everything towards the subject, the perspective of your photograph can change. And as the perspective changes, the actual outline shape of the subject can change. And that makes it extremely difficult for the focus stacking software to align the photographs. So in that particular instance, it can be more effective. And if you're doing it manually, it can even be easier to leave the main bellows mount in a fixed position and move your camera incrementally forward towards the lens. The advantages of this are, first of all, the perspective does not change when you do that. And one of the real advantages of this, if you're doing this manually, is that compared to the step length when you move the whole bellows, the step length moving the camera towards the lens is much larger for the same shift in focus. So if you're using that technique to manually focus stack, you have a lot more room to play with. Your steps are going to have to be significantly longer. So they're the main reasons why rear bellows focus is a useful technique and why I should have brought it up in the video and why I'm telling you about it now. It still comes with, in my opinion, a couple of drawbacks. The rail on my bellows, the pylons that move the camera and the lens are not the sturdiest. They're quite narrow, and they do have a little bit of side to side and rotational play in them, which conceivably could change the plane of the sensor as I move through the specimen, and that would essentially change the plane of focus. I am a real stickler for meticulous bellows hygiene. I try never to expand or contract the bellows when I have a camera attached. I learned that way, and I've had to clean plenty of sensors from lazy bellows behavior. So it's probably a good idea to bear that in mind. Whether or not it's as big an issue as I think it is debatable, but it's good enough for me. I hope that helps clarify it, but make sure you put that in the back of your mind as an alternative if you're manually focus stacking on larger subjects. It can give a better result. Moving on, bathing with bees. I got a really interesting question a short while ago about cleaning insects before photography. The question concerned, how do you clean a dusty or a dirty, hairy insect like a bee or some flies if you don't want to get it wet? And there are a lot of reasons you wouldn't want to get it wet. Washing bees in particular in soapy water, rinsing them and drying them can give you a very rough looking insect. I think there's something on those bristles on some insects that helps keep them separate and distinct, each bristle. When they get wet and matted down and you dry them with a blower, it's really, really difficult to get the bristles looking normal again. I'm a big fan of soapy water washing, clear water rinsing, the use of the ultrasonic cleaner for stubborn dirt. I love all of these things, and that's my normal workflow before I preserve an insect. But when I come across a freshly deceased hairy insect, and it's usually something like a bee that I find on the sidewalk or on the windowsill, they're often covered in dust and dirt. In that situation, my workflow is quite different. There are two techniques that I use. The first one involves using these incredible devices. These are super fine hobby brushes that I bought at a super fine hobby shop. It's not, well, it's the only hobby shop, I think, but it has a lot of really cool stuff. These things are found in the plastic model section. I don't know what in the world you'd use them for, quite frankly. Painting, possibly. But they're plastic. They have a very, very fine tip, but they have this tiny little brushy thing on the end that works fantastically for combing the hair of a bee or a wasp or anything. They're great for getting dirt out of mouth parts of spiders, and especially good with beetles, because you can get these tiny brushes in the smallest spaces. If you have a microscope, that is a huge help. If you can do this under a stereo microscope, a dissecting scope. If you don't, you can do just as well, I think, with one of those big lit magnifying glasses or a pair of loupes. Whatever you do for your magnification, even one of those electronic microscope things would be a handy way to do it. You just position your bee with a pair of forceps, pickups, so you can hold him steady. I like to hold the bee by the base of a wing without tearing it, of course, and then using my other fingers to support it. And if I'm holding the bee like that in a stable position, I can use one of these to ever so carefully wipe the dust particles and the dirt granules right off. This will even do a good job of removing dust and dirt from the compound eye without damaging it or scratching it. If that doesn't work, if I still have dust left, especially if it's the kind of fine dust that sticks to insects on the windowsill, the second method that I use is is very effective. If you've ever cleaned a camera sensor, you'll be familiar with this. I use a slightly larger brush. By the way, I'm going to show you also where you can buy these brushes. They are fantastic. The smaller ones, you probably can't even see that. I'll put a picture in there. It looks like it's maybe 3 bristles on the thing. It's great when the other hobby brush thing isn't working. This is even finer and softer. But the larger brush is nice and wide and flat. And all you have to do with this is take your blower, especially if you have a pointy one, that works best, and vigorously blow air through the bristles. I like to secure my hand to the blower so all the air goes through. After about 20 blows, this brush will have a good charge on it. And if you take your bee and simply wipe it over the structures you're trying to clean, the eyes or the bristles, the dust just jumps onto the brush. And then when it's fully loaded and it's not attracting anymore, take it and blow it off again. Get it completely clean and charged and do it again. It works better at some times of the year. When it's cold and dry, it works a lot better. In the summer around here, it's not always very effective. But that's only for the 11.5 months that it's summer here. So that's how I clean a dry bee that I don't want to get wet. And that's it for today. So thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you again as soon as I have enough questions or decide to do a big long video. Until then, take care. See you over at Discord.